Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 408 of the No Sugarcoating podcast. I'm your host, Amber Romaniuk. How are you? I hope you're having a great week. How is it already? Like the middle of April, the year is flying by. How is it already episode 408 of the podcast? I just love sharing with you every week. So as promised, I'm a few episodes late, but I am really excited today. I think this is going to resonate for so many of you today's theme of podcasts. And like, I've had so many aha moments around numbers and money and how it used to tie into like weight and clothing sizes and all these other things. And I really wanted to wrap it up and put it into a podcast today. And I feel like I'll probably create many podcasts on this. So this week's episode, chasing numbers with the body, weight, money, and more. Numbers addiction, what are the signs, and building a balance on what we focus on, because I feel like it can actually be really easy to get asphyxiated and obsessed with numbers. And I'm going to kind of like break down some of the experiences that I've had, what I've noticed for myself, and then kind of tie it all in to whether it's like body image, weight, money, etc. And it's a very fascinating connection. And of course, having my business now for 10 years and being a business owner, right? Like there's these business pieces I'm going to share today in this podcast, along with like the physical healing, the emotional, the energetic, etc. So, fun little fact, if you didn't know before we dive into today's episode, we are officially in the shadow of Mercury retrograde. And I want to bring this up because Mercury retrogrades can feel very intense. And the whole point of them is to actually bring things up to surface that you have ignored, suppressed, not fully dealt with yet, so you can heal them and be free of them, learn the lessons and let it go and not have to repeat it again in another few months when the next one comes along. In Mercury retrogrades as well, we can have technology glitches, failures, things can break. So if you're like feeling like these things are happening to you and you're like, what the heck is going on? And you're not sure about Mercury retrograde, like just search it and you'll see that we're in the shadow and we're going to be in it for the next few weeks. It doesn't mean it's going to be doom and gloom. It's a very empowering time. But I notice for me, when we're coming into a Mercury retrograde, I just feel more sensitive and tender, and my ego can get like a little more heightened more easily. And then I checked the other day, I'm like, oh, we're in the shadow of one. No wonder I'm feeling this way. It's funny. A lot of my colleagues and friends were talking about, are we in a retrograde? Like people are canceling appointments and missing things and technology is not working properly. And I was like, I don't think so. And then I checked and here we are. So just a fun little fact. And if you want to hear more about, this tied into how it may impact your relationship with food and your sleep, et cetera, leave a comment below if you're watching on YouTube or just respond to me in an email on info@amberfood.ca. I love your feedback and I want to hear from you, as I'm happy to tie those things together. So a couple key announcements before we dive in, which we will do right away. The show notes for today's episode can be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/408. Did you also know that 8 is the number of abundance? Boom. Yes. Okay. So if you are really resonating with today's podcast and you're like, oh my gosh, I think I'm always chasing numbers, chasing money, chasing the number on the scale, chasing the clothing size, and that I so have my worth tied up with the number on the scale and I let that dictate my happiness. My worth is tied up with how much money is in my bank account or isn't. My worth is tied up in the number of my clothing size, right? And you just feel like you're stuck in this cycle with the body battle, and then it's triggering more diets and the diets aren't working and you're failing on the diets and then you're getting hard on yourself. I highly encourage you to reach out to explore going on a journey to food and body freedom or business freedom or both. And how you can do that is you can either email me at info@amberapproved.ca and I'm happy to give you details, or book a body freedom session. Honestly, it is a great 30 minutes. We connect on Zoom together and you fill out an intake form and we get the chance to just have a beautiful, intimate conversation between the two of us and talk about your struggles, your goals, what's going on with your relationship with food, body, mindset, ego, your physical health symptoms, energy, emotions, all of it. And then we get to talk about the paths and the programs available. I get to answer your questions, send you some details, and then we reconnect to see, what feels like the best path. And it's just, to me, like the best way to connect. And I love connecting with you and having the conversation. So you can go to amberapproved.ca, click schedule a consultation. It's super easy to go and book that. You fill out a form. It's $50 USD. And then you will get to select your time. Also, something I've been forgetting to do, but I'm going to try and remember to do moving forward, is talk about the Body Freedom membership and the different topics that are going to be coming in the following months, because you may want to just dive in for 1 month, which is 77 USD. And as soon as you sign up for the Body Freedom membership, you get instant access to the dozens and dozens of replays of previous sessions, everything from inner child healing to tapping sessions on like weight and body image and lack, scarcity mindsets, to talking about sleep and sleep hygiene. We've talked about going toxin free. We have talked about, actually this month in the membership, there's 3 separate sessions. So you can also come and catch them live if the schedule works out. So every month we tap, and in the tapping sessions, I always, whoever comes live, I go, hey, what are negative thoughts and emotions are you feeling? And based on that, we do live tapping on that, and it clears out negative thoughts and limiting beliefs from your subconscious, and it helps you get zen and grounded and take your power back. Everyone always leaves those sessions feeling so good. And you can see, because you can go and watch the replays and you can just see the shift in people's expressions and energy. It's so cool. The self-care session this month. So we do self-care together for an hour every month in the membership. And this month, the theme is going to be all about ways to start connecting with your inner child, because your inner child is like a hurt part of you that's hanging on to all kinds of stuff from the past, who's sad and upset, who's fueling your egos, causing your body to hang on to protection, and so much more. So I'm going to teach you different ways to start connecting with your inner child so that you can start like mending this relationship with her. And in the Building Body Freedom membership session, we're actually going to talk about loneliness, which is a very common emotional eating trigger, binge eating trigger. I'm going to start talking about ways you can actually start clearing and releasing the loneliness. So not only does it stop, it stops triggering emotional eating, but also how to start like building this relationship with yourself. So, you're never alone and you have you, and there's this opportunity to clear that out and not let it fuel self-sabotage or let it really contribute to your mood dropping really low. So if you want to come and join the Body Freedom membership, you can do so for 1 month. It's 77 USD, and you can leave at any time. Or you can do a 3 or 4 month commitment and save and do like a pay in full. So those are all available. And the link for the membership is available at amberapproved.ca. Just go there, go to online programs. It's at the top of the page. Or you can just click in the show notes and it'll take you there to sign up. We've got a whole new back end. We've got a whole new membership section. And for all existing members of the Body Freedom membership, you all get 20% off any masterclasses or self-study programs that are currently available, which means you can go shopping and exclusively get the savings as well, which you will see the code and all of that when you become a member in the membership. So come and join us. It's a great place to start, fine tune, tweak things on your journey. And I love coming in and teaching. The more we have live, the better. It's so beautiful and fun to be in the live energy. So the details are below as well if you're watching on YouTube, in the description. Make it real easy for you to come and join us. So let's dive into today's podcast session. I was having client sessions earlier. Now we're into the podcast recording. So a few weeks ago was like sitting on the couch and just all of a sudden got all these downloads, all of these ideas, these thoughts, these emotions came through around, specifically for me, money and numbers in that regard. But I can see for me how my relationship with food and counting calories and like trying to be around a certain amount of calories then morphed into the weight obsession and wanting to be a certain number on the scale, right? Which a lot of us do when we are convinced and conditioned that your worth is tied up in how much you weigh and that you will be happy once you lose weight, even though that is a false construct. And it's our responsibility to build happiness regardless of the number on the scale. But yes, like as you take care of yourself, as you build safety, you heal your relationship with food, you learn how to set healthy boundaries, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You do feel happier. But happiness is so much more than a number on a scale. Happiness is so much more than the number in your bank account. Happiness is so much more than the number of, whether you're a 0 or an 18 or a 4 or whatever your size is. That we've been so conditioned as society to be asphyxiated with hyper focused on numbers and numbers dictating how we should feel. And it should never have been that way. And I really feel that what ends up happening is when we get so asphyxiated and obsessed with numbers and focusing on them and fighting with them and trying to control them and get a certain outcome, we get so disconnected and distracted from going inward and doing our deeper work and connecting with our intuition and like learning how to listen to our bodies, learning how to understand our physical cues and our symptoms, which is our body's way of talking to us. And we just get so upset and stressed, and that overwhelms the nervous system. And then that fuels hormone imbalances and guts issues. And you become more sensitive to things, and it's easier for your body to hang on to protection, all because you're so conditioned and asphyxiated with a number. It's very, very connected. So like I said, I went through this huge experience with it, obviously over the last 14 years, just being so obsessed with the number on the scale. And if I'd get on it and the number went down, I'd like have a dopamine high, be jumping up and down, be like cheering, so excited. But if it went up or didn't move, then it'd be like frustration, anger. It would trigger me to binge. Like, do any of you relate to that? Or I would like now I have to punish myself and go work out harder, go on another diet. Oh, it was honestly so draining, so draining. But we chase numbers with the body. So the scale, clothing sizes, money, calorie counting, right? Trying to attain a certain caloric intake. And what we don't realize is that a lot of us have really connected our worth with those numbers. If I can stay in this certain calorie range, if I do lose a certain amount of weight in a certain amount of time, if I fit into a certain clothing size, if I make a certain amount of money and or have a certain amount of money in my bank account, then I will be happy. I can finally feel worthy. But the thing is, we really realize where we're truly at and how far we've come on our healing journeys when we don't like the number we see on the scale, when we're not the quote unquote clothing size we want to be, when we don't have the amount of money in the bank account that we want. That's when there's opportunity for growth to see, where am I at? How am I showing up? What are the insecurities that are coming up for me when I don't have this physical thing occurring the way that I want it to? I think there's so much power in like seeing that, right? There's so much power in seeing that. And it doesn't matter whether you're a business owner, a coach, a career, a mama that is staying at home, raising her children, a student, etc. Like, it doesn't matter your background. This is about your human and you and the relationship that you have with yourself, with food, your body, and money, which can be similar across the board. And it's a very deep, vulnerable relationship, the relationship you have with yourself, with food, your body, and with money. Right. And it's not taught that it's so sacred and powerful. It's very vulnerable. And of course, some of the things we desire most? Money, weight loss, looking a certain way, right? Like the external look. And, a lot of people do almost anything to lose the weight, to make a certain amount of money, to have a certain amount of status, right? There can be a lot of sacrifice that goes along with throwing ourselves under the bus. Right. And I mean it in the way of like, oh, wow, this diet promises that I can lose this much weight in this amount of time. Okay, well, I'm going to like completely restrict myself and do like 3 hours of insane exercise every day. But then like your hormones are a mess and you're exhausted and you're puffy and you're gaining weight anyway. Like, I'm not talking about like mindful things, like really nourishing food and nice mindful movement and doing what feels good for you. I'm talking about like you're self-sabotaging, you're hurting your body, you're punishing, right? A lot of people will do things for money, not good things. Not everybody, obviously. A lot of people do really good things for money. But we see, how money is used to bribe, manipulate, control, right? Follow the money with the food industry, follow the money with big pharma. If you follow the money, you get so many answers, and there's a lot of corruption there. But what I'm talking about specifically is we can get so attached to these external things. And yes, I know money is required to live and survive and pay for your mortgage and your rent and your groceries and things like that, right? We do live on a planet where we do require money. However, I'm talking about getting so deeply asphyxiated and obsessed with needing to achieve certain numbers, certain goals, that if you don't, you get really upset, you get really hard on yourself, just like with the scale. If I don't reach this goal by this time and I don't drop to this weight by this time, like, you get so upset, you get so frustrated, you get so hard on yourself and hard on your body. And I think this is so important to understand. And I'll share a couple of things that I've learned in my business journey, because the scale thing and the food thing I'm not chasing numbers with that. I'm not chasing numbers with the scale. I'm not chasing numbers with having to control my calories. Like, I eat what feels good for me and I go by the way my clothes fit. And every year, of course, when I go to the doctor and I forget and they weigh me, and then the doctor's always like, oh, good job, you lost a couple pounds, or oh, you're this, that's great. And I'm just like, oh, thank you for the reminder, but it doesn't matter anymore. Like, I'm over that, right? But what I noticed, where I noticed that there was still an imbalance, and this is what the first 3 months of the year showed me. So thank you, universe. I got the lesson now. Is where I was still somewhat tying my worth up in the amount of money I was making in my business. Now, obviously, I think it's so important that if you decide to start a business or be in business, that the first reason behind it is because it's fulfilling, it's nurturing, it serves some kind of purpose for you. You're passionate about it, you love it, you're excited about it, you're excited to be of service. Now, that doesn't matter whether you're, someone like me who is coaching women to heal these things and be in service of that way, or like my hubby who is in service by building the most beautiful, incredible custom car parts, right? Like service, it's not, oh, it's only this group of people that can be of service because of the kind of work you're doing. It could be anything. But when you love it and it's fulfilling you, that is why we want to start a business. I don't necessarily encourage people to start businesses because they're like, because then I'm going to make all this money in like 2 months and it's going to be amazing. I want to make, all the money. It's like, yes, of course, we want to make money. We want to be abundant. I want to be abundant. I love money. I love, right. However, it's so important that we have the balance and find the balance between showing up because we want to be of service, we want to help others, we want to create something incredible that's going to benefit the world, right? And humanity, versus like, oh, I need to like make this amount of money and I want to make this amount of money every month. And if I'm not, then I'm not good enough and something's wrong, because that's false and that's really heavy and low vibration and that can pull us down. And I've gotten caught up in that in the past. I'm always of service with my clients. I love my clients. I love what I do. I love teaching masterclasses. I love the programs. I love the membership. Like, I wouldn't have created these things if I didn't love them. And it's funny because depending on who we're working with, depending on like the kind of content we're consuming around money, we can start to take on habits that can kind of pull us away a little bit of our why and why we're doing it in the first place. And now none of this is a blame, but it's just some observing. And one thing I observed from my first business mentor is, and she taught me a lot of great things, but there was a lot of focus around money. Numbers, goals, monthly goals, yearly goals. And I think it's good to have an idea of what we want to manifest because we're powerful manifestors and having clarity of that is important. But when it's to the point where, she's wanting me to nitpick and break down to like my weekly money goals, like none of that ever resonated for me. Because what I think can happen is we get so asphyxiated with, oh, like I had made this much money this month. Oh, now I want to have this kind of month and I want to stabilize to these kind of months. And I think it's good to have goals and to want to grow and expand. But it's when you don't achieve that amount of money in a month, or you don't have that certain amount of money in your bank account, what are you making it mean about yourself? What are you making it mean, right? Like, what's the self-talk? Does your ego take over and get really hard on you? Or are you able to be like, it's all good? Like, ebb and flow is a universal law. We're going to have our influxes and then we're going to have our quiet moments where it's actually a great reset, a great time to reestablish, get organized, etc. And it's taken me a long time to embrace the ebbs of my business and not just the flows, because it's so fun when there's a mass influx of new clients and the money's flowing in and like I'm selling masterclasses and I'm teaching so many people and I'm educating, getting all this positive feedback. Like there's a big dopamine hit that comes along with that. And that's so fun. But then it's like when there's an ebb, right? Like for the first few months of the year, I'll tell you the story. So some of you have gotten an email if you purchased anything like Freedom from Emotional Eating or the membership or the Food Prep Magic bundle, that I've changed everything over to Kajabi. And the reason that I did this, well, number one, I was kind of looking at it before. It's a back end that hosts all my software. So I'll keep it short and sweet because I'm like, I don't want to hear about your computer software. But this is part of being a business owner. Like there's all these pieces to deal with. Like the consumer gets to just show up and buy it or sign up for it and enjoy it. Like you don't see all the work that goes on behind the scenes. And there is a lot of time spent like writing copy and getting checkout pages ready and writing promo emails and social media and showing up. Like it's not just as cut and dry as sending out one email and that's it. There is a process to all of this, but I love it. But essentially MailChimp decided to skyrocket their prices for email lists in December. And I'm like, I am not paying like $500 a month for email lists. That is ridiculous. So I paused all of my lists, hence why there was a pause of access to certain things that I offered, like master classes. And then everything was kind of like scattered all over the place. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't like this energy of things being scattered. So then I think it was like going into mid-February that I'm like, okay, I've got to start working on this, because energy in your business is everything. And if the energy is stagnant with something like this, it can slow down like the flow of clients, money, opportunities, etc. And I did notice that for a period of time. And then what happens is a great check-in. My ego's like, oh, something's wrong. Like, it's been quiet this month, and like, whatever, I've had quiet months before, but this time it just felt different. And I'm just like, okay, what is it? Like, if there's stagnancy with my business, like there's stagnancy in some part of it that's contributing. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, because there's this back end stuff that's all sitting here that's like on pause. So I started to work on like shifting everything over, and now everything's over. And I swear, like, as soon as I started getting big chunks of everything moved over with some great help, of course, the flow starts to come back more again, right? The other things that I learned, during this time is just to be fully like open and vulnerable, sharing my insecurities, my thoughts, my feelings, and my ego with my partner. Cause I always had this thing of like, oh, like I just need to always be so chipper about my business and money because he has a business, and I don't want him to ever get like worried that like sometimes things are like, you have your ebbs and flows. Like every business owner has ebbs and flows. It's a literal law of the universe. Every person has ebbs and flows in their life, periods of more happiness and sadness. Like it's just part of life. But we want to latch on to the happy times, the times when things are good, and then we want to avoid or rush through when there's learning, when there's growth, when there's discomfort and vulnerability. So I just have been like so raw and open and vulnerable with everything the last 2 months, and I've been met with such support and such love and compassion. Like, I feel like my hubby should be like some kind of a mentor for people, because he is so incredible with everyone. Like, I'm so blessed and grateful for him. I'm trying to get him to come on the podcast. I would love to have him on and interview him and talk about relationships and talk about like, all kinds of different things, because I think he would just bring a lot of wisdom to the episode. So once I'll keep working on him, and hopefully you'll hear him with me one day, because we literally started hanging out and seeing each other as this podcast was birthed almost 8 years ago. So it's kind of like there's a synchronicity with us, which is really cool. Anyways, so the moral of that story with the holding back, being vulnerable, was like my ego was making all these false stories, and none of it was true, which is usually the case with the ego, right? And I cleared a lot of stuck energy and emotion in my body. And I just feel so at ease now, because we're so open with each other around that. I always could have been. There's just this story that I was hanging on to, and it was my stuff, no one else's. Another thing that, all of this taught me is that we can create this numbers addiction where we're relying on making a certain amount of money, getting a certain amount of likes or, follows or shares on social media, because social media is another way we can get addicted to numbers. Getting this validation, well, if the money's coming in, if the clients are coming in, if the likes are coming in, like everything's working. But then if things slow down, we assume, oh, something's wrong. Something's wrong with me. What am I not doing right? Why is nothing coming in? Right? We get into this lack mentality. We can start to panic, and then we can start to get sad because we're not getting all these dopamine hits from the likes, the shares, the influx of bookings, clients, etc. And so I think it's so important to celebrate and be grateful for and appreciative for every time someone sends me a DM on Instagram, like I always respond, and I will always respond unless you're spam. Then I don't respond. I just delete. But I always respond to every email, to every Instagram DM, to every comment on YouTube. I always respond because I think it's very important to acknowledge you. I've sent messages to people before asking about programs and things like that. No one responds. They see my messages, they don't respond. I'm like, do you not want business? Like, I just could never do that anyway. Because I want to acknowledge you. And I think it's so important to be grateful and appreciative. Like every time I sign a new client or someone signs up for a masterclass or comes to the membership or whatever it is, like I celebrate, I jump up and down, I go tell Phil, I'm like, oh, I signed a new client. I'm so grateful. I'm so excited. And we get really excited together because that celebration energy, that gratitude energy is so magnetic. And then it goes out into the universe and you just become a manifesting magnet. Right. And gratitude and appreciation are just huge. Like I have learned a new level of gratitude and appreciation over the last few months, and that abundance doesn't just show up in the form of money. Abundance shows up in the form of positive feedback from my clients. It shows up in, previous clients being open to doing video testimonials. It shows up in the form of people DMing me on Instagram going, oh my gosh, I just watched this masterclass and it's absolutely changed my life. And I've had so many aha moments. Abundance comes in the form of collaborations and people wanting to have me on their podcast and vice versa. And I will have a lot more guest episodes coming up. Holy moly, it's just a balance to find the flow that feels good. But there's abundance in the amount of support that I've received from my hubs. I call them my hubs. We haven't technically gotten married yet, but we've been together long enough. We just call each other husband and wife because, the love is there. But yeah, like all the support, the abundance of support and love and compassion and empathy that I've received from him is just such a gift, right? So there's that abundance. There's this abundance of time that I had to move everything over to this new back end that if I would have had like massive influx of clients would have taken me a lot more time. So that energy's cleared up now. There's the flow is there again. And I know people are coming in and getting stuff already, master classes and stuff, which is great. The abundance of time for self-care, for regulating the nervous system, meditation, visualization, right? So many positive things, but numbers addiction, what are the signs? Whether it's scale, social media, money, not having it, right? And what I realized is regardless of how much or little is coming in, like I'm so worthy, I'm so supported, right? And there's so much to be grateful for. And it is gratitude that is the highest vibration that helps you then, right, manifest and magnetize that which you want. Versus if you're focusing on what you don't want, you're focusing on the lack, you're focusing on feeling, guilty and shame because this isn't happening and what's wrong. Like all these stories come up. Well, you drop your vibration and then you start attracting lack or misaligned collaborations or people who, whatever it is, like it just misalignment is attracted. And we're going to have our ebbs and flows. But the more we can be aware of the relationship we have with money, our bodies, food, etc., the better. Actually, before I go into numbers addiction, I want to talk a bit about some of the patterns I noticed between my relationship with food, the scale, and money that had carried over to money. And then I had these aha moments. So I have a question for you first. What kind of relationship do you have with money? Do you ever talk to money? Are you grateful for it? Do you feel like you never have enough? Do you put it down? Do you get upset and frustrated paying your bills, or are you in gratitude? Do you feel contraction looking at your bank account? Do you feel stress looking at your credit card statement? Do you cringe every time you have to pay for something? Are you always wishing there was more and just focusing on that there's never enough? Or are you so grateful and you love money and you are always in flow with it and it feels so easy and effortless for you? Because what I started to notice the synchronicities were that if I had a consistent influx of money, I was happy, I loved it, and I was so grateful. But if I didn't have an influx of money, I was pissed off, I was upset, I was critical. It's like, what's wrong? There's something wrong. And my ego is more in control. And I didn't allow myself to be as happy. Now, where did I do that previous when I was struggling with food addiction? With the scale, right? If I got on and it was a number I didn't want to see, I'd be pissed off, I'd be angry, I'd get hard on myself, I'd be critical, punish myself. But if it was a number I wanted to see, I'd be happy, I'd be nice to myself, I would let myself live my life the way that I wanted to. So very superficial, very conditional love versus unconditional love. And so I started to realize, wow, like I have kind of got a similar relationship with money. I love it when it's there, but I don't love it if it's not. And it's so important that we learn to unconditionally love money, regardless of the amount coming in or not. And that it's just one currency of abundance. And there's infinite amounts of ways to receive abundance. Like when we play Uno and one of the rule cards is like pick up 14 and then there's a +4 and I have to pick up 18. I'm like, I'm so open to receiving this abundance of cards, right? Because we're always receiving, and it's about our perception of whether we're open to receiving it and seeing it as a abundance that shows up in many ways or a bad thing. But I was noticing the superficiality where it's like, okay, like not as much is coming in. Like, how am I feeling about my worth? How am I feeling about my confidence? Am I feeling insecure? Is this triggering insecurity with me? I don't want to think anything's wrong, but I can't help but think it because what's going on? But yet when it was coming in, it's like, oh, I'm so grateful, but it's not enough. I want more. I want more. I want more. And I think part of that comes from when you're following certain people on social media and you see them sharing their Stripe accounts. If they're even real, they might be edited and photoshopped, who knows, but you want to hope people are being honest, right? And they're having these record weeks, record days, record months. And you're like, oh my gosh, I want that, right? You get a dopamine high when you see them sharing. And then we go, what can I do to make that happen? But it's so important for us to take a step back, celebrate people and what they're doing, recognize we're on our own path. Don't compare it, right? Just like with body image and shape and size, don't compare your journey with your success and your flow with your career or your family or your motherhood or your business or like whatever it is. It is a detriment for you to compare because we each have our own unique set of circumstances. And the sooner we can catch comparison and snuff it out, right? And celebrate our way and what we're doing and our learnings, and we're human, and right, like it's all a big learning for all of us, the better. Because then you're not so hard on yourself. So I was noticing that synchronicity, right? Like comparison, like how come they're growing faster than me and I've had my business for longer or whatever it is. It's like, stop comparing, trust yourself, trust your flow, trust your path. There's lessons you're learning that they maybe already have, or vice versa. And we can't assume, because something that's been happening in the coaching industry over the last 2 months is a lot of fraud is being exposed. People faking, how much they're making just to try and get sales, and people not giving the quality of service promised for the price and all these things. And I'm like, okay, I've got to check in and make sure I'm fully in integrity with what I'm doing and what I'm offering. And obviously I am, because I've been in for 10 years and helped a lot of women. And I wouldn't show up and do things like this podcast every week and create all the free content and all the things that I am if I wasn't. But it was great for me to check in, to make sure that there was nothing like no icky energy, no stuck energy in me or my business that wasn't in alignment. So I learned a lot about this conditional love that I had for money. I only loved it if it was coming in a certain amount. And if it was below that, then I was getting upset with it. Just like with the scale. Oh, if it's going down, right? 10 to 15 years ago, if it's going down, that's great. But if it's not, like, I'm upset. And it's like, no, there's a deeper level of healing and emotional, spiritual maturity for me here. I want to learn how to be just as happy, grateful, excited, and in love with money, regardless of how much has come in today, this week, this month. And I shifted that, and I learned how to have the deepest gratitude, deeper than ever before. And to learn how to be just as happy or more happy, regardless of if something came in today. It's powerful to get to that place. It's the next level of freedom, the next level of ease and peace. Now, it certainly didn't come with its struggles and its tears and things, but I mean, it's part of our process. So compassion, nurturing, lots of inner child connection. If you want to come and do inner child work in the membership this month, please do. But I talked to my inner child a lot and I reassured her a lot. And that's something that's so important for us to do, because your ego wants to go into doubt and that there's something wrong. And oh my gosh, like what's going on? But it's just a learning opportunity, and the universe always has better things on the other side of it. It's just like, try to be patient and know that there's something even more incredible conspiring for you than you ever could realize. So with numbers addiction, it's very similar to food addiction. Like, you chase something to get a dopamine high. So I'm chasing a number on the scale, and if I see that number, I get a dopamine hit. I get a massive dopamine hit, and then I get excited, right? But if I don't, then I'm upset. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I'm sad. So we're literally taking our worth outside of ourselves and attaching it to this piece of metal, right, with numbers on it and a little needle that like pokes to the number that it is, right? Like if you have the manual one or you have the one that just shows the numbers, the scale. right? Like we're literally giving our power away to this piece of metal or this piece of glass with some numbers on it and a little thing that points to whatever you're at right now, right? We're giving our power away to whether or not you overconsumed your calorie points, right? But if you stayed within your numbers, you're going to get a dopamine high and you're going to go, okay, I was good today. So like I can reward myself, or I was good today. So I can like be happy with myself rather than unconditionally choosing to be happy or love yourself or know that you're good enough regardless of where you did with your food today, right? Learning to love ourselves through the failures and the wins and everything in between. But when we don't feel good enough and we feel unworthy and we have insecurity, we will attach and we will stay hard on ourselves, and our ego will take over and get really hard on ourselves, like really bad. And it's not cool, right? With money. Oh, if you don't make this amount of money in a month, or you don't pay off a certain amount of debt, right? And or you don't buy a certain brand of shoes this month, right? To look a certain way to get approval from external society, right? Then you're getting down and hard on yourself, versus when you do make the money, it's a big dopamine hit. And it's not that we don't want dopamine hits, like celebrate, be excited when you reach goals and you hit milestones and things happen the way that you want them to. But it's the superficial conditional connection and then chasing it. And it's, you're in full service to your business when you're creating out of love and excitement and giving value and offering from this place of like, oh my gosh, I want to help people. This is going to change people's lives. I feel so excited about this. People are going to get so much out of this, right? Versus I need to create all these things to make money. If I create all these things, I'm going to make money. And that's what I want, right? It's like, no, be of service. And the beauty of the energetic exchange of being of service is you receive the money in return for the being of service, right? And the gratitude and appreciation. Have goals, be excited about them, but what are you focused on? Being of service, or like is fixating on, I need to make this much money. And then what if you don't that month? Are you getting really upset with yourself? You're getting really hard on yourself. You're emotionally eating, you're punishing, you're going, it's not worth it. What's the point? Like, be very clear if you're feeling fulfilled by your career, your business, what you're doing. Because the money is trying to teach you, right? When it's the scale, it's the same kind of thing. Number goes up, you're not happy, number goes down, you're like excited, pumped, all the stuff. So as long as we are letting these external numbers dictate our worth, our happiness, the way we treat, talk to, and take care of ourselves, there is this tie to this addiction in a sense, like this chasing this dopamine hit. Same with social media. Oh, like I posted a reel a couple of weeks ago about potatoes and McDonald's and pesticides and all this stuff. And I just post what's on my heart, and whatever, the first few days, it got like a few thousand views and some great comments. And then one day it went from like 5,000 views to 30,000. And then it was up to 70, and then it 100K. And I'm like, what the heck? It's funny. My first response wasn't like, oh my God. I'm like, what the heck? Like, how did this happen? Anyways, but I could see myself going, oh, like, oh, let's hit 120, 130. I'm like, no, like, this is just to educate people. Like, let me detach. And you're like, can I do that again tomorrow? And it's like, no, this isn't about reaching a certain amount of numbers. This is about me sharing value content that is going to help my audience. But we get caught up in the numbers. How many likes did you get? Did you get any comments? If you didn't, oh, there must be something wrong with me and my content, when there's not. I don't know about you guys, but I don't really, the Instagram algorithm, I don't get it. I don't get it. It's a puzzle for me. I'd much rather record my podcast, to be honest, because I can just talk for as long as I want. I'm not limited to 60 seconds. But we're just asphyxiated, and we've tied our worth up with a number. And if we're achieving these numbers and they're growing and it's right, we're happy. But if it's not, we're sad, we're upset, we're depressed, we're in anxiety, and it completely dictates our mood, right? And the way we speak to ourselves, our bodies, to money, if we're mean and negative all the time, like there's that unworthiness, there's that insecurity, there's that ego. So there's work to do there. And that's one thing I realized, right? That I was talking to money in a conditional way. I was loving money in a conditional way. So it's a great learning for all of us. And now I unconditionally love money, regardless of how much or not is coming in. And I'm very grateful, and even more so, like, never take it for granted, right? The flow, the opportunities, the collaborations. I feel like I'm going to have to record a second episode, because I literally journaled like these 7 or 8 pages of beautiful notes that I want to share awareness around, like triggers, what triggers lack, what triggers like I don't have enough, which again could be money, food, love, all kinds of different things. But I feel like I'm going to do that in a separate episode because there's so much more to unpack. And I want to be mindful of not like going on and on forever either. But a lot of the same things that we trigger us with body image trigger money. And so I'm going to talk a bit about this, and then I'm going to go into building a balance with what we focus on. So you'll see these across the board, like what triggers us to go into lack mentality or get upset that we don't have enough money, comparison of what we have versus what others have. Just like with weight, comparison to what you look like versus what someone else does, the results someone else is getting versus you. Appearance, look, status, patriarchy, hierarchy, right? Like all of this can trigger lack within us because we're comparing, right? And then you look at movies, media, magazines, public figures, politics, right? Like so many things that give us a certain perception of money because, oh, wow, these people are famous and they're so wealthy and look at their lifestyle, and we get obsessed with it. And maybe for some of us, that's the lifestyle we want, but maybe some of us just want to have a big yard and a huge garden. You know what I mean? Like, regardless of what you want your lifestyle to look like, it's divine for you, but we get so caught up in this hype and this almost illusory reality. A lot of us don't value our worth because we don't think we look good enough. And then you don't increase your prices in your business, or you don't ask for the raise at your job, or you don't go for the promotion, right? You don't dedicate time in your self-care routine with having kids because you feel so guilty that, they're going to think something negative of you, which is false, right? There's a lot of negative opinions about money in the collective. And so then we create these negative mindsets around it when money is just energy. It's a currency of energy, and it's a beautiful thing to have a healthy relationship with, just like your body and your size. And I find just like with weight, like the safer you feel, the more grounded and aligned and connected you are with your body, the easier it is for her to release any unneeded protection. It's the same with money. The more in gratitude you are and of service and like doing your deeper work, and the more open you are to receiving, the easier it is to create and manifest flow. It's very powerful. But if we're constantly being hard on ourselves, if we're constantly negative, we're constantly affirming negative things, and we're hurting ourselves with food and punishing, we drop our vibration, we block what we want to manifest. So one thing a colleague told me one day is like, do you ever envision money as a person and like talking to money? And I'm like, no, I've never done that. So I started envisioning like money and talking to money, just like I talk to my body, talk to my digestive system or whatever parts. And I'm like, hello, how are you? I'm so grateful for you. Thank you for everything you provide for me, right? What messages do you have for me? How can I learn from you today? Like, what do you have to teach me? And that's where all this journal entry that I'm going to share with you in another episode came from. And all these learnings over the last few months, and like just seeing in my business where there's some things I was spending money on, like, I don't need to be spending money on that. Actually, I can get rid of that. Or wow, that's a really valuable investment in my business. So I'm going to keep that or put more into that. Right? Bless your bank accounts with love. Be so grateful for what you have, right? Use nature as a great example of abundance. Talk about abundance, the abundance of raindrops coming down, the abundance of leaves starting to grow on the trees, the abundance of flowers that'll be coming in, the abundance of green grass that's going to start growing, the abundance of ducks I've seen in the last couple of weeks migrating back from, the south from the winter. And I love duckies. They landed on the roof on the house just down the way, and they're walking around waddling. I'm just like, this is so cute. The abundance of ducks. They're so cute. Do you love ducks? Yeah. I got a soft spot for the duckies. They're adorable. A little waddle. Anyways, but I think it's so important we look to nature to see how abundant nature is, to remind ourselves that we get to create that too. And if you're finding you're so asphyxiated with the numbers with the scale, social media validation, money in your bank account, right? Like there's an opportunity to look in the mirror and see the reflection and go, okay, why do I have these attachments? Why am I tying my worth to these things? Why am I tying my happiness to these things? Why am I only being grateful and appreciative when it's going the way I want it to? And when it's not, I'm getting upset, angry, critical, etc. Just like you would with a scale, the clothing size, food, calorie counting versus losing control and binging, right? Like we want to find that balance in that middle ground. And I want to hear from you. Do you want to hear more about money? Do you want to hear more about my journey with money in my business? Because if you do, please let me know, because I'd actually like to create some masterclasses and some content tied to your relationship with money. And it doesn't matter what your background is. It's that we all have a relationship with money, just like we all have a relationship with our bodies and ourselves and food. And they're usually very similar. So we can heal money, we can heal food, we can heal the relationship with the body all together. And I do want to create some content and some things to support you with that, because I feel like I've learned a lot. And I've probably had like 4 or 5 tapping sessions in the membership in the last year that have been around lack mindset and money. And it's really helped the women. Women have manifested better jobs, raises, like all kinds of cool things, because we shifted their energy and their focus. So I want to be of service in this way, because I feel like having a business for 10 years and all the healing I've done with my relationship with money, right? Going from someone who literally was always in the negative, fearing, wanting to look at my bank statement and my bank account in the red, to like now having a consistent, beautiful flow of abundance and being grateful for it, regardless of if it's $10 or 10,000 that comes in. And I want to teach the same to you, because it's just such a more peace of mind to feel at peace with it. It's an energy. So we want to heal and align the energy so you can just be a receiving magnet, right? So let me know, email me, DM me on Instagram. Let me know if you want more of this. Let me know in the comments here on YouTube, because I want to share. So building balance with what we focus on, this is what's the key is. And so this is where one of the first things that you always hear me talk about, honestly, is if you have the means to do so, invest in support. Because when you have been so heavily conditioned, brainwashed, whatever you want to call it, conditioned, that you can't be happy unless the number on the scale is a certain number, or you have to have a certain amount of money in your bank account, or you can't be happy, or you're tying your worth up with your clothing size, the scale, money, all of the above, how many calories you did or didn't consume today. There is a huge gap of, connection between you and yourself. And if that is there, it's just blocking you from like your true happiness, more gratitude, deeper connection, deeper healing in the body. Because if you're constantly in this fight with numbers and chasing numbers, your nervous system is overwhelmed. I can guarantee you that your cortisol is probably really high, and it's probably messing with your hormones. And then you're upset because the scale isn't changing, and then you don't feel worthy. So you're not putting yourself out there, and then you're not bringing in the clients, the abundance, the sales, the career upgrades, right? The deeper quality relationship with your spouse, your kids, whatever it is. Because you're fighting with your ego constantly. And we want to shift that. So reach out, book a 30-minute body freedom or biz freedom session. Biz freedom there's an element of business coaching, money, energy healing, but I also do that with my clients in body freedom if they bring it up. But in business as well, we talk about like being seen, how to get established, how to grow your reach, right? Whether it's through podcasting or social media, how to show up, how to bring in beautiful structure while having balance with your health and body, making sure you're prioritizing your well-being whilst growing, right? This beautiful, beautiful business. So there's all kinds of things we can do in there to support your physical, emotional, energetic health, or you can come for body freedom and we can focus on the healing of your relationship with food and body. But money usually comes up for my clients, and it's really cool because we bring in different tools to help you with that. So you know what to do if you want to reach out about that. I may even do some more abundance sessions in the membership if people want that. So let me know. I think it's important to understand like how asphyxiated you are. Is this resonating? Do you tie your worth up with the number on the scale? Are you tying your worth up with the calorie count? Are you tying it up with the amount of money in your bank account? Are you tying that you don't feel worthy to have an abundance of food, or that you don't feel worthy to heal, right? Do you fear investing because you're afraid that you'll fail? What if it doesn't work? Like, that's scary. It's important to look at where your fears and insecurities are with these numbers. Are you posting on social media just to get likes? And if you get likes, you can be happy today, but if you don't, you're upset. We want to break that, because your worth is actually fully within you, and nothing external can fulfill the internal void and make you feel fully worthy. There's this responsibility that we must be willing to take to go inward and deal with the ego, dismantle the negative thoughts and limiting beliefs that are keeping us stuck in these cycles where we're looping into these thoughts and behaviors about chasing numbers, and that I get to choose, that I get to be happy today, regardless of the scale number, the clothing size, the amount of money in my bank account. I get to choose to be grateful today, because life is incredible and a miracle, and also so delicate at the same time. And I'm so grateful to have another day to be here. Yes, we're going to have our ups and downs, but it's learning that, like, no matter what's going on and what I'm given, I am worthy and I am good enough. And that doesn't dictate or belittle or put me down or like drop me to a lower level. That is ego programming, and we must be willing to deal with that. Can you set boundaries where maybe you start weighing in less? And if you're afraid to do that, reach out. Let's explore support, honestly, because you don't want to have this fear of, like, if I stop weighing in as much, I'm going to lose control. That is all mindset. But obviously we do it at a pace that feels good for you. I don't want to rip the Band-Aid off. I think it's important that instead of focusing so much on what you don't have, right? The weight loss success yet, the healing with the relationship with food, the amount of money in the bank account, start focusing on what you want. And instead of going, oh, I want to be this weight, it's like, I want to feel, how do I want to feel in my body? I want more energy. I want my bloating to go away. I want to heal my relationship with food. I want to have peace with food. What would that feel like? What would that look like? I want to have this much money in my bank account. So get excited about it, right? When you start to get excited and you start to think about what you want, which we do in the membership and I do in one-on-one in the mind map sessions, you start to create and manifest that. When you constantly are putting all this energy and focus into what you don't want, you keep creating what you don't want. So this is where it's really important for us to be clear and start to understand, what do I want? And if you don't know, start journaling on it. And if you still don't know, book a session, we can talk about it, right? Clarity is the key. The more clear you are on what you want, when you start focusing on getting excited and emotionally involved with what you want, how you want to feel, right? It's very powerful. Start journaling on, what kind of relationship do I have with my body, with food, with money? Like, do I see similarities across the board? Am I happy with it? Am I not? Like, does this trigger all my insecurities if it's not going the way that I want it to? And if it is, can I start affirming, like, I'm worthy regardless of what's going on in these areas of my life? I'm whole regardless of what's going on in these different areas of my life. Can you take a social media break? Can you, right, balance out how often you're looking at your bank account? Like, obviously look at it as often as you want, but if you're just going in there to upset yourself, like, right, or write down a number on your statement that's like tenfold what you want it to be. Get excited about it, right? But don't just like meditate on it for one day and then be like, oh, it's going to happen. Like, put the work in, like, commit to visualizing, take the steps that you are required to create it. It's not necessarily just, I'm going to just sit here and like envision 50 new clients coming in and then I'm not going to do anything, right? Like, that is the visioning is just one part. And then be grateful for the littlest things. Be grateful for the one day you sleep really good and your energy's better. Be grateful for the day that you don't binge. Be grateful for your body and everything she does for you now. Be grateful, and you'll start to see a huge shift. So can you bring in more gratitude practice, more positive affirmations, right? This stuff really helps us shift. So you can start with those things. I'll probably do a part 2 on this episode because there's so much to unpack here. I thought I could get it all in one, but holy moly, there's no way I'm going to get it all in one. And I don't want to rush through it because there's a lot of goodies to give you guys with this. So as always, the show notes for today's episode can be found at amberapproved.ca/podcast/408. If you have questions or you're interested in more money, energy content, info@amberapproved.ca, give your feedback, what you want to see. You can also go to amberapproved.ca, take the free emotional eating quiz, book your 30-minute body freedom or biz freedom session, and you can get access to the membership, online program, self-study. Everything is there. Or you can click below in the description if you're watching on YouTube. And as I always say, there's no better time than the present to take action on your health. So take action now. Have a beautiful day, a great week, and I will look forward to sharing an entirely new episode with all of you beautiful souls next Sunday. Take care.